Hi, I'm Yoga Rupa Stryker, founder of Para Yoga. In this video, I'm going to talk about the basics of mantra practice. You know, a lot of us have practiced mantra before. We make certain assumptions that really what mantra is or how we approach it. But in this video, I really want to walk you through some of the key principles that illuminate the systematic approach to mantra that enable you to get the most out of it. The truth is, when I initiate individuals into their own personal mantra practice, invariably I say the same things over and over again, in which I essentially delineate the terrain of mantra, define mantra, explain how to do it, and really how not to do it. And so I want to make these teachings as accessible as possible and really ensure that you become as successful as possible when you are actually doing the practice. So in short, mantra really is the core of practice. If we look at Sri Vidya, which is a branch of Tantra Yoga, look at Yoga, or even Vedanta, mantra is the very basis of it. We could say that mantra is yoga itself. And the way we practice is around using asana and bandha, pranayama, visualization. All of these other techniques, you could argue, are really just a way to advance our consciousness and truly prepare us to do mantra practice. So let's begin by saying this. Mantra is unique in terms of meditation practices. First of all, it's not actually another object. For instance, when I use my breath, that's an object of meditation. When I say, I focus on my breath, or I focus on a chakra, or I focus on an attitude, or I focus on a particular place in my body, I focus on particular contemplative techniques, those can be used as objects, tools to help steady the mind. But it is said that mantra is not an object in the normative sense of meditation practices, that mantra actually is a subject. Mantra is actually consciousness itself. So therefore, what we can say about it is, mantra is not so much a bridge to higher consciousness. Mantra actually is the sound body of higher consciousness. Now, it's true that different mantras actually are, or embody, or are the essence of different qualities of consciousness. But let's look at this whole principle first of mantra in a general way, and then we'll hone into specific techniques. So the big takeaway from that is that mantra is consciousness. So it means that we're not going to use mantra to concentrate. We're not really going to use mantra necessarily to still the mind. It's going to be much more productive if I give you the fundamental instructions and steps to get to the point where your mind is still enough to actually relate deeply to what the essence of mantra is all about. When we look at life from either a scientific or a philosophical perspective, we see both traditions really in line with this idea that life is vibration. In the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. Everything is vibration. If at this moment the mantras cease to exist, and so the point I'm making is that they're already here. Sound and vibration is what sustains our universe. And if suddenly these mantras were no longer present, the world that we know would no longer exist. It's reliant on these mantras. In ancient times, sages and seers saw the mantras or heard the mantras in their higher states of awareness. And that's what mantra practice is really the legacy of, is heard sound or even seen or experienced states of consciousness through sound. The word mantra is made up really of two words. Man means to think, and tra has two meanings. Tra means to protect, and it also means to expand beyond limitations. So this really gives us a very powerful idea of what mantra is all about. It's a way of expanding the mind while at the same time protecting it. The key here is that we're not going to be trying to brainwash ourselves with a mantra, like I describe it as the Chinese water torture technique, where you're just going to try and drip the mantra into yourself enough times by saying it over and over again. But rather, the whole point of it is to have the mantra speak to us. We experience it through our feeling, through our listening. More than asserting it in our mind, onto our mind, we actually get the mind into a place of receptivity where it can hear the mantra. One thing I tell students is that the mantra doesn't need you to repeat it. The mantra is already here. What we need to do is be in a position to hear it and feel it, maybe even see it. So there's a couple other things I would suggest that are helpful to understand how we're going to go about working with mantra in a systematic way. Number one is that mantra is the opposite of language. The language that you and I use words to convey meaning, just the very thing I'm doing now. And the words that I'm using to convey my thoughts to you trigger associations in your mind. Mantra works the opposite way. In fact, the associations, the experience came first, and the word comes after, the word that defines or captures the essence of that feeling. So when we talk about relating to or experiencing higher consciousness, what we're really talking about is accessing the feeling and then, or the awareness of it, and then the mantra comes. So how do you get to this place where you're going to hear your mantra or see a mantra or feel a mantra? I provide a practice, a guided practice in the systematic approach to mantra on our website, parayoga.com. So please avail yourself of that. In this video, though, I'll just briefly describe the steps that get you to that place. In the audio track that you'll download and listen to, you'll go ahead and experience them step by step. So we take our time. Essentially, though, as I outline them, step one is pure breathing, sometimes called circular breathing. This basically is a rhythm of setting up the inhale and exhale to be absolutely equal, absolutely smooth. And as we do this for a few minutes, so inhale and exhale are the same length, and it becomes more and more continuous. And as we do this, even after a minute or two, we'll notice that there's certain rough patches in the flow of the breath. It's vital that you'll correct those imbalances. The breath will then become completely continuous and smooth. And then as we continue with that and we deepen it, we'll begin to notice a kind of unfolding of stage two. In stage two, you begin to notice a quality of awareness, cognition, presence that's behind your thoughts. The pure breathing kind of clears the slate of the mind, the screen of the mind. And as a result, we now begin to sense that there's something deeper than mind, and that is awareness. So that's step two, is the dawning of awareness. Step three will be to notice that awareness is most concentrated somewhere here in the midbrain. So you'll experience that as step three, and it's important that each step is established before you move to the next one. After that, after we notice that this awareness, if you will, is, and it could also be heightened presence or vibration, that is most dominant here in the third eye. The next step is to notice, and this is the most subtle one that perhaps takes a little more time to develop, and that is that awareness is inherently vibration. That gives rise to the mantra. So after step four, once we notice that there's this ongoing expression of awareness that is sound or vibration, that's really the field that is the source of all the mantras. And from there, that's where you hear or experience or feel your mantra unfolding. It's important, if we're going to experience this place where we can hold awareness and the mantra can be present, both simultaneously. So I haven't said it explicitly until now, but this is all about silent mantra practice. The practice is completely silent. It's not chanted, said verbally. And the reason we use silent is because it's effectively deeper. Chanting touches the conscious mind, whereas silent practice touches the unconscious. And so the point now is that if we're going to get to a place where we can simultaneously hear or feel or sense the mantra, along with awareness, so that awareness exists and so does the vibration or the presence of the mantra. If we're going to get to that place, it's going to require, at least initially, that we work with a shorter mantra. In fact, it probably brings up the question at this point of which mantra should I practice or do I practice? Well, there's no doubt that you can go out and find your own mantra. There's really two ways to work with mantra. One is that you're initiated into mantra, you're given a mantra by a teacher who's in an authoritative lineage, who themselves has been taught or given the authority to teach mantra, and they have practiced mantra for quite some time. They've actually reached a level of mastery with it. Or we go find our own. Clearly, the first one is ideal. From the traditional sense, the ability for a teacher to transmit mantra carries the power of tradition behind the mantra. So it's more than just you and your practice, but it actually is the lineage of sages and saints that have worked with mantra throughout really millennium that comes through that initiation, that comes in and that comes through you, through your practice. The other thing is we find a mantra, something that we find in a book and we do some research about. Now, that's certainly something that we can do, but what I'm going to suggest is initially to work with this systematic approach, use a 1 to 2 syllable mantra. For our purposes, we recommend Om, Soham, independent of the breath, or the mantra Rama. So those three, and again, the brief idea around those three are Om is for transcendence, Soham is really the state of yoga, the oneness between the individual and the universal, and the third, Rama, is to develop positivity and strength, to really feel the positive, vibrant, healing sense of resolve and empowerment. It's like the divine through strength and light. Use one of those three mantras to get used to this process, and then later you can move to either what we'll recommend is the Gayatri or the Mahamrityunjaya mantra. If you're not familiar with them, you will be if you continue to seek them out. The tradition says that there's two types of mantras, awakened and unawakened, or locked and unlocked. And through the teacher, receiving it through a teacher, a mantra is unlocked. Its potential is released, open to the student. However, the Gayatri mantra and Mahamrityunjaya mantra are unlocked for all students to use. But it's important that you first have this relationship to the systematic approach where mantra unfolds. So I really recommend for something like 3 months to 2 to 3 years, do one of these shorter mantras I've prescribed, or indeed receive some consultation from a senior Parayoga teacher for additional direction on mantra practice. The next thing I want to discuss, and we're almost done, I want to just discuss using a mala. When we do silent practice, it's very helpful to use a mala, but not initially. The mala, you know, is the bead of 109 beads. The 109th is set off. That's called the guru or the meru bead. And essentially, we're moving through the mala with each repetition of the mantra. The reason it's helpful is, one, because there's a certain aspect of embodiment that accompanies the use of mala when you're doing silent japa, silent mantra repetition. It helps to embody. Just like most of the time we practice asana, we encourage you to keep your eyes open for most asanas. Why? Because there's a certain aspect of you are developing the quality of attention and internal awareness, but still there's a recognition of your body and worldly awareness. With mantra, it's much more subtle. Our eyes are closed, but this act of actually moving the mala beads, the beads, one by one with each repetition helps to embody you. Also, there are some practices later in your sadhana, in your own practice, where I or a senior Parayoga teacher might recommend that you do a certain number. Now, in some very ritualized techniques, that number is important. So the mala helps us keep track of the number. Now, the downside of the mala, and this affects almost every student I work with, and indeed it negatively impacted my practice, is that it's easy for mantra to become mechanical. Because we start putting the goal of the numbers or getting through our malas ahead of the deep experience of the heart experiencing the mantra unfolding. And so I have a systematic approach, and I'd like you to kind of follow these guidelines to the extent that they help you. But here's my suggestion. For the first month, don't use a mala. No mala. Just get into this vibratory, deeply felt experience of where the mantra can coexist with awareness. Stage 2, after a month, you begin to have this very kind of conscious, subtle relationship to the mantra. It's now more feeling than it is mechanical. You would go for the next 1 to 3 months. So after you've completed a month of no mala, the next month you would go, the next stage you would go approximately 3 to 6, I'm even going to say 1 to 3 months of half and half. So half the time with the mala. Let's say you have 20 minutes to meditate, 10 minutes with the mala, 10 minutes without the mala. After 1 to 3 months, if it feels like the experience of the silence of not using mala is beginning to infuse itself into your experience of using the mala, then you can go to the next stage, which is about 2/3 with and about 1/3 without the mala. So now with your 20 minutes, you roughly go 14, 15 minutes with the mala, and now approximately the last third without. And then finally the last stage, and now this is taking you anywhere from, let's say, 3-4 months to get to, even to as much as a year. Now the entire time you're using the mala. Do you need time for silence at the end? Not really. The truth is, I really don't know the difference between when I'm meditating in silence, I hear the mantra. When I'm meditating with the mantra, I hear silence. So for me, one ultimately gets to a place where there's no distinction between silence and mantra practice. However, at the end of the practice, we do recommend that you offer the merits of your practice back to your teacher or back to the wisdom of the mantra, back to your guide, your inner guide at your heart, something along those lines. The last thing really to say about this is that ultimately mantra japa is a non-dualistic experience. Ultimately, the aim of it is that you become the mantra, not just in your meditation practice, but in your worldly activity as well. When you move out into life, the mantra is as alive in you as you are in the mantra. In other words, in meditation itself, you become the mantra, aware of itself. And really the only place to get to that is this very surrendered state through these steps I've described, where ultimately you've put the mind into a rhythm of receptivity, and where initially we might have practiced with the mantra alive in our intellect. We drop out of our intellect through these 5 steps and surrender to awareness and the vibration is where the mantra really unfolds from. And the last step I'll just mention is that ultimately the mantras live in your heart. It's said in the Sri Vidya tradition, they say that really the manifesting power of mantra is in our heart, and that's true for all of us. So gradually moving out of intellect and into the heart is where this practice culminates. Now you become the living expression, the essence of the mantra. And the mantra is at the same time fully invested, fully alive in you, and yet it's completely effortless. So those are the key steps around practice. If you're interested in samadhi, it's really where this presence of the source of mantra and the mantra are one and the same thing. That's the lower stage. And the highest stage of samadhi is when the mantra just becomes a pure feeling state in your own heart. Well, enjoy the practice. I hope this has been helpful, and I look forward to hearing from you and seeing you again soon. Thank you.